This is RetRead Podcast.
We take a deep dive into the Fear Street series
And review other books we've read.
I'm Serge.
And I'm Anna.
We're happy you can join us. We're back again with another episode of RetRead Podcast. Today we are going to review Fear Street Super Chiller Cheerleaders, The New Evil. This is the fourth book in the Cheerleaders Super Chiller series. I don't know, I thought they killed it last time, but apparently it's back again.
Well, it's like Star Trek or the X-Files. Nothing's ever dead. But before we get into our review or discussion, I'm going to be reviewing Maggie Stiefvater's new book, Call Down the Hawk, which is the first book in the Dreamers trilogy. This is actually a spin-off from the Raven Boys cycle, which was 4 books.
Did we review those on the cast?
I think I reviewed the series as a whole when I finished it.
I think so.
But now we're back. When I heard that she was writing this book, I was a bit trepidatious because I thought the Raven Cycle was well done. Usually when creators come back to a series, nothing good comes from it. And I had read a few of her other books and they were okay. They didn't really strike me the same way that the Raven Cycle did. So I was like, oh no, she's lost her touch or whatever the heck. And then I found that the character of Ronan would be featured in the series as opposed to, Blue or Gansey or any of the main characters from the Raven Cycle. I mean, he was a main character, but he's sort of like a secondary main character.
If we transpose this into the Harry Potter universe.
Well, he's not like Harry, Ron, or Hermione.
So he's like one of Ron's brothers.
I mean, he has like his own storyline and like part of the plot does revolve around him. So let's just say he's not one of the core 3, but he's still like an important character. I mean, I liked Ronan enough as a character, but I didn't know how he would do as like the featured character. He wasn't the character that really like spoke to me from the original series. After reading this book, it's clear that I was worried about nothing. It's perfect. I loved it. I mean, first of all, Stiefvater's writing. Something about her other non-Raven Cycle books, it didn't strike me the same way the Raven Cycle did, but with this book, it's back. It's this precise writing. It gets to the point, but it's also beautiful. It moves the story along, but it also like takes time to develop and differentiate the different characters. It takes the reader on an emotional journey and it gets them invested in what's happening and what's about to happen in both the plot and like each character's individual story. Really great at writing character interactions and group interactions. When the various characters are together, like some writers will just make you forget like who's there with them. What characters are there again? Who's talking? What's going on? Doesn't matter because like these two are the dominant ones in this conversation. You don't really get that with her. Like she really makes you feel like you're in a room with them and like enjoying their like interactions. And she was just on fire for this book. And while we were introduced to Ronan's family in the previous series, instead of being really background characters, like think more Seamus Finnegan or Dean Thomas from Harry Potter if you want to just use Harry Potter for some reason.
I haven't read that much, so you gotta ground me.
You've only got a few references. But in this book, they've become secondary characters. They're there, they've made it, and it really benefits both of them because Declan in the original series, The Raven Cycle, he was kind of like a stick in the mud, the good brother who's like prim and proper and who's always bossing his younger brothers around because he is the patriarch after their father dies.
Percy.
He's kind of like Percy Weasley, yes. Except, Mr. Weasley didn't die, but whatever. You've certainly read more books than Harry Potter. But in this book, he's suddenly humanized. You understand so much about him, and you see more facets about him. This book also introduces something else, dreamers. So in the previous series, you find out that Ronan Lynch is a dreamer. And a dreamer is basically someone who can dream things and then bring them back to reality. So it can be something simple like a motorcycle that can just run on anything or nothing. It just runs, to monsters that you've dreamt up and like here they are in real life. You have to find a way to kill them. And he always thought that it was like a familial thing. His father was a dreamer, and he's a dreamer. But in this book, it introduces there are lots of dreamers out there, at least more than Ronan. But there's also people that want to kill the dreamers because it's been foreseen that a dreamer will cause the end of the world. And it's better to be safe and kill all of them rather than risk Armageddon. This is another thing that we can talk about Stiefvater's writing, because, you would think that, like, the people who are out to rid the dreamers, they're clearly the bad guys. Because you want to cheer for Ronan. You want to cheer for, like, the other dreamers you've been introduced to. You do not want them dead. But at the same time, the way Stiefvater wrote the people who are out to find them, catch them, kill them, she imbues two of them, like Farouk Lane and Parsifal, for the most part, with so much humanity that's kind of difficult to not cheer for them as well, because you see their side of things. You understand the fate of the world is at stake. So even if their success means the end of Ronan and another main character that's introduced and their entire families, maybe it's for the best of humanity. And then, you might be thinking, Anna, you've done nothing but talk about the characters and the writing. We only have a basic idea of the plot. And it's not like there is no plot or I didn't enjoy the plot. It's just that the plot is so entwined with the characters and the writing that it's genuinely hard to talk about it. And plus, it would just be spoilers. I do think that you probably need to read The Raven Cycle before reading this book.
Sure.
They're 4 really great books.
Yeah.
It really gives you a good background of the world you're diving into. I don't necessarily think you have to read it, but I think Ronan is a bit of a difficult character to like right off the bat.
No, it makes sense. Like, you wouldn't want to read a book all about Luna Lovegood and you've never read Harry Potter before, and, like, you don't understand what's going on, and she's, like, a total weirdo, and it's like, what?
I mean, you might. I don't know. She's kind of a weirdo. She would be a very interesting main character even without Harry Potter, I think. No, that's true. It's like starting a series in the middle of something. It doesn't work. I mean, you could try it. I didn't try it, so I can't really tell you how it is, but I really enjoyed The Raven Cycle, and I'm glad that I have that background before entering this series. Give those books a whirl. I think I gave those, like, a rave review too, but I definitely gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Once I really started it, I could not stop it.
Sometimes I feel like when you review a book, you're like, is it 4? Is it 5? You're not sure. You think about it. This one is just like, boom, 5 stars, done. Type up the review.
But you hated the review that I typed up.
Well, you know what? What happened was, I feel like it was squarely aimed at people who have already read The Raven Cycle, which is not me. And so I was reading this book, and it was all like, if you like that, then you'll love this. And remember that? Well, this is what comes of that. And it's like, don't know what you're talking about. We can solidly recommend this book for anybody that's read The Raven Cycle, is looking for the next book that they want to pick up.
Do you think you, as someone who hasn't read The Raven Cycle, is at all interested in reading this?
No.
And what can I do to convince you?
Well, I tell you what, the cover looks pretty cool. It's got this big hawk, and it's like swooping down, and you can see like the little swoop lines, like swooping. Yeah, it looks cool. It's a cool looking cover. You're sitting on the subway reading it, you're not going to be embarrassed trying to like hide it or anything.
Is that praise?
It doesn't really answer your question, I realize, but
no, it does not. I mean, would anything get you to read it? If you got a 5-star review from me.
No, that's true, I guess, but I have so many other books on my to-read list I gotta get through.
I will do my best to try to convince Serge to actually take a look at this book, but listeners, you guys should check it out. It's Caught Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. Highly recommend.
All right, and coming up after the intermission, we will talk about Fear Street, Super Chiller, Cheerleaders, The New Evil. Let's just launch right into the prediction accuracy, starting with me. And
how'd you do?
I was way off on this one. See, the thing is, the cover, I saw that Santa guy, and I thought, oh, I'm getting these Silent Night vibes. I bet Reva Dalby's going to be here. So I thought it was going to be a cheerleader Reva Dalby crossover. And basically, one of the poor people on the cheerleading squad gets a temporary job at Dalby's department store for Christmas. And then what seems to be some supernatural events turn out to be part of a plot to steal merchandise or otherwise kind of make some money at the Dalby's expense. And yeah, I just went totally off the rails. I forgot this was like primarily a cheerleader book. And my prediction just turned into like a Silent Night book. I don't know what the heck I was thinking.
Well, we do have a Silent Night book coming up soon, so we could just recycle this prediction just for that.
Or maybe for that one, I'll say there's going to be a cheerleading competition.
And Reva Dalby joins the cheerleaders.
Anyway, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. For murder weapon, I said drowning, which was actually factually correct. That is the one thing I got right here. And then murderer gender female and victim gender male. I mean,
wow.
I guess murderer gender could have been female. The evil is a female, I think, right? I don't know. It's hard to define.
Well, I said that it's the holiday season and the evil is back.
Yep.
And one of the Kokorin that's alive, because I didn't remember which one, is back in action. And someone on the squad is possessed. And in the meantime, the cheerleaders have to prep for a holiday classic of some sort and are having cheerleading camp or something to that effect. But unfortunately, the evil has other plans.
Yeah. There was actually like a holiday like classic thing that they're all preparing for. I don't even, like, how did you even know that?
Because holiday classics are a thing.
Unbelievable.
I said that the murder weapon would be something supernatural and it would be gruesome and bloody. Didn't really happen. I said the murderer gender would be female. And the victim gender would also be female. And I said there'd actually be multiple victims, probably.
Oh my god, I'm thinking about it now. I was actually right about there was a male victim who drowned. So I was like actually 100% right, except for all that Reva stuff. I don't know what I was thinking. But
You're
anyway.
the plot wrong.
What
is the actual plot?
Well, it's wintertime in Shadyside, and the holidays bring on cheerleading holiday classics and basketball games. Shadyside cheerleaders are back, and so is the evil. It's on the title and on the cover, and I feel like...
Could not be more obvious. It's literally right
like
there.
You're just rubbing it in at this point.
Let's get into the characters. So, the Kokorin that didn't die in the first book is actually Corky Kokorin. She's the co-captain of the cheerleading team. She has green eyes, high cheekbones, creamy white skin, and she has blonde hair that's very light and fine, which she wears in a ponytail. And I just have to say that in this book, I don't think R.L. Stine really goes into that much depth in how they look. So a lot of this is actually just brought over from our previous outlines, in case people really want to know how the characters look. Yeah, so Sean is Corky's younger brother. I guess his main character trait is he plays video games. He's still playing video games in this book. He's also apparently a practical joker, but I think it said that when R.L. Stine was describing the character, I don't recall any like real practical jokes he's done. I think he just likes making the younger brothers into practical jokers, and they'll do like one stupid thing, like they'll say boo at like some stupid moment, and that'll be their like practical joker moment, but it's like they're not really. I think in the first book he did some practical jokes, like he left out a fake bug or something to scare his sisters. Now that was basically like, I don't think he does anything in this book along those lines. He does play video games with Corky. That's his like thing. Next up we have Alex. I don't know his last name. He's Corky's boyfriend, and he's one of the most popular guys at Shadyside. He's got blue eyes and white blonde hair, tiny dimple on his right cheek, and he's actually the center of the basketball team. White blonde hair? That makes him seem like, I don't know, like a blonde villain or something. A blonde villain? I meant Bond villain, but... Well, we also have Jay Landers, who's Alex's best friend and also on the basketball team. He's goofy with a toothy grin, always cracking dumb jokes and laughing at them. Long, crooked nose, tiny brown eyes, short, spiky, white blonde hair, and a Mighty Ducks hat. White blonde hair again? Is this when everybody was dyeing their hair? Is that what this is supposed to be like? That was a thing with like teenagers for a while, right? I think you're thinking frost tips. No, that would not be described as like white blonde hair. Like all those boy bands had it, right? That's frosted tips. Okay. It's a different thing. Alright. Maybe R.L. Stine just didn't know what it was called. I think R.L. Stine just likes white blonde hair. You know, one of our fellow podcasters has a theory about R.L. Stine and why he loves white blonde hair. Okay, you should listen to Teenage Scream and check it out. Oh. Next up, we have Kimmy Bass. We all know Kimmy Bass. She's been in countless cheerleader books and other non-cheerleader books as well. I think she was a prominent character on, like, Double Date. Co-captain of the cheerleading team, round face, topped by a mop of crimped black hair, and pink cheeks. Next up, we have Hannah Miles. She has straight black hair, and she's actually the exciting new star in the squad the previous year. Jealous of Naomi? Who is actually the newest cheerleader, who's replacing Ronnie Mitchell, who was smart enough to leave town, because why would you want to stay in this poor, murderous death town? Yeah, that was a smart move, given the events that are about to commence. Anyway, she's got long, carrot-colored hair, and she's the new star of the squad who thinks up cool and fresh routines. Seems like every year we get a cool new star on the squad. Yeah, first we had the Kokorins, then we had Hannah, and now we have Naomi. We do need to mention Deborah Kern, who is
co-captain. She's been on the squad since the first cheerleader book. She's got straight blonde hair, cut very short with icy blue eyes. She's a little quiet and a little cold and wears a crystal around her neck. And she's really into the occult. I don't know if you guys remember that. She really got off in all of the hauntings and possessions that happened in the previous books.
She also tried to cast a sleeping spell on her dog, and she reads a lot of books about spells and the such. Next, we have Heather Dio, and we don't have anything about her, so it probably doesn't matter. We'll just go on to the new cheerleading
I always thought
coach.
it was Heather Deal.
Whatever, deal or no deal. Doesn't matter. Next, we have Miss Closter, who is the new cheerleading coach who replaces Miss Green, who is also smart enough to leave town. We have two very intelligent people who have left. Good for you, ladies.
She's short and pencil thin, and either 30 or 35.
At that age, is there even a difference? Because ode is ode, I guess, to young Miss Corki Kokorin.
Yeah, okay, whatever. 30's the new 20, man. But anyway, she's got a plain, slender face with gray eyes that are always unhappy. Wears a Notre Dame cap backwards over short brown hair.
Maybe she's unhappy because she's either 30 or 35.
Wow, we got a lot of characters here. Next up, we have Ivy Blake. She's a big girl, tall and athletic looking, dramatic face framed by long wavy hair, brown with blonde streaks, and she's best friends with Lauren.
Lauren Wilson, she lives in the North Hills. She's tall and graceful. She has creamy pale white skin, because it can't just be white skin or creamy skin. It's got to be creamy pale white skin. Straight auburn hair and a weak voice, but she's a great jumper.
And finally, Rochelle Drexler. Long white blonde hair. Oh my god. R.L. Stine, what is going on in this book? Why does everybody have white blonde hair in this freaking book? She's got a pretty face with a tiny upturned nose and round blue eyes.
This episode is brought to you by Kananka Ice.
Skate year-round at our climate-controlled facility, Kananka Ice. It's twice as nice as skating outside.
Let's get started with the in-depth plot. It's a long book. Let's just get right into it. We start at the end of a cheerleading practice, and it's Corky, Kimmy, and Hannah, and they're getting into Kimmy's car to drive home because it's freezing outside, and it's just too cold to walk. Hannah refuses to put on her seatbelt because her house is only a 10-minute drive away. It's snowy, and it's icy, and it's the law. Put your stupid seatbelt on. You're not cool when you don't wear seatbelts. Put on your seatbelts, everyone. That's your PSA from RetRead Podcast.
This is what happens. As they're driving, they talk about the squad, they talk about Alex, but then Kimmy loses control of the car, and the brakes give out, and the car starts spinning, and they crash into a tree trunk.
And then what happens?
Well, obviously, since Hannah was very careless and didn't buckle her seatbelt, she actually flies out of her seat through the windshield and is, horribly injured.
Well, they're brought to Shadyside General, where Corky and Kimmy wait for news about Hannah, because neither Kimmy nor Corky suffered major injuries because they were wearing their seatbelts. Wear your seatbelts, everyone!
Kimmy keeps talking about how she could feel the evil in the car, and the evil must be back.
Corky says, no way. It was just an accident. The evil is in the river, buried under the ice, because apparently in Shadyside there's ice on the river 365 days a year. And then you get a recap of the 3 previous cheerleader books. We have episodes about that, so listen to those. And then you find out that Hannah has a broken collarbone and a lot of stitches. She's in stable condition, but she'll probably be in the hospital for a while.
Cut to the next cheerleading practice. The last 2 practices were actually canceled because of the accident, and now the squad is pretty low energy. There's going to be tryouts for Hannah's replacement on Monday, even though the holiday tournament is in 2 weeks.
Wouldn't it just be easier to modify the routine with who they have left instead of bringing someone new to learn something new?
And I thought they already had an alternate, but whatever.
The basketball team comes into practice, and Corky gives some lame excuse to Miss Closter to go talk to Alex, her boyfriend, and Jay. And then she asks Alex to meet her after practice so they can drive to the river. Cut to them having banal chatter in the car. And Corky obviously has Alex drive her to the river so she can make sure it's still frozen because, like I said, it's...
What's going to happen in the springtime?
No, there is no such thing as springtime. They're stuck in this season. And so is the evil.
Okay, there's an ice fishing hole in the ice with white steam billowing out of it, so obviously that must mean, well, according to Corky at least, that the evil has escaped once again.
She tries to call everyone involved with the previous interactions with the evil, but no one is available.
She has a nightmare.
Well, it's a bus.
another bus scene where she's convinced that the evil has taken over her body.
It's not even worth talking about. Let's just cut to Pete's Pizza, Friday night.
Alex and Jay are rehashing the basketball game they just lost. Jay is trying to cheer Alex up, and Corky is as bored as the reader. Alex smiles at Dina and Jade as they walk in, throwing Corky into a fit of jealousy, and once again, it's up to Jay to try to lighten things up.
Corky spends Saturday night playing Mortal Kombat with her brother, who wins every game, and she decides anything must be better than losing to her kid brother in Mortal Kombat, because Mortal Kombat is not necessarily a fun game to play when you keep losing.
She might have some PTSD with all those fatality animations after she's seen so much death over the last 2 years that she's been at the shady side. But she finds out that Kimmy is at Deborah's house, so Corky decides to crash their party. She rings the doorbell and knocks, but no one answers, and so naturally, she barges in and starts walking around the house trying to find them.
She ends up walking in on Deborah and Kimmy. They're kneeling around the den with a circle of candles around them. They're chanting something as Deborah is holding a long red candle with a strange book opened in the middle. Corky does the natural thing and interrupts their weird-ass ritual.
Yeah, what the heck are you guys doing?
Well, they're chanting to summon a spirit to protect them from the evil, and then Corky takes this opportunity to tell them that there's a hole in the ice.
Maybe they should have posted signs around, no ice fishing allowed. Danger of evil contamination.
Well, Deborah is sure that someone must be contaminated or possessed by the evil because that's how it operates. Both Corky and Kimmy immediately deny it's them.
Right, but they were the two girls in the car along with Hannah. Anyway, everyone's kind of freaked out and they decide that they're going to try this chant out, get this protection charm working. Apparently, it's from a very old book that the store owner didn't want to sell.
Yeah, because the book might be dangerous or something.
That's a good way to, crank up the price on the book. I really don't want to sell this to you. I don't know. You gotta really make it worth my while,
Well, they start the chanting, and then the den wall starts to shake. China figures shake on the shelf, nearly toppling on the floor. The walls shake harder, and the floors vibrate. There's footsteps from upstairs, but there's no one else home. Where are these footsteps from? Pictures are falling off the wall. The room is being filled with the musty odor. All the candles go out, and then everything stops.
Deborah says she felt the spirit, but now it's gone. Maybe if they hadn't panicked, it would still be there. Kimmy wants Deborah to put the book away because it's clearly way too dangerous. She's got a point there. Maybe there is something to it. Corky never wants them to do something like this ever again. She wants them to lead normal lives and forget any of this ever happened.
Too bad they didn't talk to anyone else. Everyone else is talking about did you just feel that earthquake we had in Shadyside? Oh yeah, and they're just oh my god, it's the book. We cut to cheerleader tryouts on Monday. At the same time that they're doing cheerleader tryouts, some men are doing work on the bleachers, working on the metal frame supporting the wooden benches. Obviously, something is going to happen.
Yeah, this is so typical R.L. Stine. This is how he always writes these scenes. Corky and Kimmy are helping Mrs. Closter pick the replacement because there's a teacher's meeting going on. So the finalists for the position are Ivy Blake, Lauren Wilson, and Rochelle Drexler. And Corky and Kimmy send the three girls towards the bleachers while they go to Miss Closter's office to discuss it. They decide it's going to have to be Rochelle.
Well, it turns out Ivy was standing just outside the door, not listening in on them, but totally listening, but, she says she wasn't listening. And obviously Corky and Kimmy are just not convinced that Ivy was not listening. Just as Corky and Kimmy go out to tell the girls the results, they hear one of the workers scream, "Look out!" And then they hear actual screaming.
They race over and see that a screwdriver fell from the bleachers above and right into the back of Rochelle's neck. Whoops.
Obviously, the police are called, and the EMTs take Rochelle away to the hospital. She lost a lot of blood, but she was still breathing, so it's okay.
The worker says that the screwdriver flew out of his hand. He was holding it tight, but it just came out. Corky just can't stop crying, and she keeps thinking about how her sister, Bobby, had died in the same gym. Miss Closter goes to call Rochelle's parents, and Ivy wants to know who made the team. Now that Rochelle's out of the way, who's on the team, guys? It's wow, it's a little bit insensitive, Ivy. This girl almost died here, and all you want to know is who's going to make the team now? Corky says that it's Ivy, which makes Lauren fly into an angry rage about how it's not fair, and how it must be because of her and Alex.
What? Corky and Deborah are hanging out at her house the next day. Deborah is trying to convince Corky that the evil is back. Corky doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to think about the evil. She wants to put it behind her.
She's got other things to worry about,
Alex?
Yeah, what's going on with Alex?
Shadyside High has a bunch of counselors ready to deal with any students who want to talk about the accident. With everything that happens at Shadyside High, shouldn't they just have counselors on staff full-time?
Corky's too busy trying to figure out what Lauren meant about her and Alex, and Deborah's convinced that Lauren is full of shit and lashing out. She can't lash out at her best friend, Ivy, so it might as well blame Corky.
Corky calls Alex to confront him about his relationship with Lauren.
He says that he helped her out with a government project, and she must have gotten the wrong idea. Corky asks Alex to come over tonight to help her with a government project, and Alex turns her down. After some awkwardness, their conversation ends.
Corky goes back to the living room, and hey, there's Naomi. Naomi's upset that they're having to teach a new girl their fire baton routine, which goes back to what I said. Why do you need another girl? Just do it with the people you have. She tells them that Lauren begged Miss Closter to be an alternate just in case, and Miss Closter relented, which sends Corky and Deborah into a rage because there's never been an alternate before. But that's a complete lie because that literally happened in the first book.
There's been so many fucking alternates.
So that'll be in the nitpicks, I guess.
Yeah, there's been so... Anyway. We're at their next cheerleading practice on Thursday night, and Miss Closter wants to test out the confetti cannons. You know, they just borrow these from the college, and every time they borrow the confetti cannons, it works so well.
I don't understand. Like, they've got fire batons and confetti cannons. Like, are they starting a war with the cheerleaders or something?
They're filled with confetti, and once the string is pulled, confetti flies everywhere. They're only half loaded for their practice tonight. There's this whole routine that's involved prior to shooting off the cannon, and before they can start, there's an argument over who gets to shoot the cannon. Like, yeah, I want to shoot the cannon, because shooting the cannon sounds pretty cool. I mean, I would want to shoot the cannon, right? Ivy wants to take over Heather's cannon, and Heather is totally against that, and Ivy starts to get really angry about that and storms off.
So they go about their cheers and go through the routine, and we're off to the cannons. They're shooting the cannons. And of course, when the cannons go off, Heather's cannon actually backfires and shoots her right in the face. It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Whoops. Heather is still conscious, and Miss Closter does a quick check to see if she remembers her name, age, location, etc. She's fine mentally, but she has powder burn on her face. Deborah and Kimmy try again to get Corky to recognize that the evil must be back. And they think it's clearly Ivy. I mean, come on, like, first of all, she's so eager to be on the squad, and as soon as she finds out that Drexler got it, Drexler gets, like, screwdrivered. And now she wants the cannon. They think that she got rid of Hannah to begin with also, with a car accident to get on the squad. Obviously got rid of Rochelle because she wasn't going to initially be the replacement. And then now her best friend Lauren, you know, because she wanted to use the cannon. And then, like, obviously Heather's not letting her, so Heather gets blown up. All of these things add up. Except what I don't get is Ivy wasn't in the car when Hannah crashed and went through the windshield. I don't get why it's her fault that happened, but whatever. Corky's in deep denial because she desperately wants all this to be just a series of coincidental accidents, and she just wants everything to be normal. The evil being back brings her, like, memories of her sister and the way Bobby died, and she thinks about Bobby all the time and cries every day about her, and it's, like, just really sad. And if you guys don't remember, Bobby actually died gruesomely by, like, getting...
Steamed?
Yeah, she got steamed to death in the shower with, like, hot water. It was, like, awful. Anyway.
Deborah and Kimmy both acknowledge that Corky's denial makes sense, but what happens when they become the targets?
Corky gets home to find that Alex is at her house. He's hanging around with Corky's brother Sean while waiting for her to come home. And like a good boyfriend, he's actually letting Sean beat him at wrestling. So that's kind of cute.
Corky tells Alex about Heather's accident and then asks him why he isn't with the myriad of other girls at school, like Lauren, or Dina, or Jade.
Yeah, guys really love being asked that kind of question by their girlfriend, let me tell you. This is not how you keep your man.
He brushes it off with a joke, which is a nice thing to do. Corky confesses that she's nervous about all the accidents happening, and then she's confused as to why he seems nervous about the game that's coming up. At the same time, Alex wants to confess something to Corky, and she is 100% sure that he's going to break up with her. But luckily for her, the doorbell rings and it's Jay at the door.
Saved by the bell.
Corky is so happy that Jay has arrived because Alex definitely 100% cannot break up with her if there's someone else there.
Next, they're all at the pep rally, and it's a raucous and good time for everyone. The cheerleaders do some cheers and some of their routines, and now it's time to do the fire batons. Yeah, let's pep up the whole crowd. The fire baton routine starts good until Naomi is set on fire somehow. What? Kimmy jumps on her, knocks her on the floor, and smothers the flames. Naomi is badly burned, but Kimmy was able to stop the flames before they reached her face. She'll be in the hospital for a few weeks.
Deborah and Kimmy are once again discussing how Ivy has to be the one possessed by the evil. Ivy was the one who dipped the fire batons in kerosene.
Right, and she was the one that wanted to, like, do the fire routine.
No,
and then, like, Naomi was, like, against, like, getting more people trained on the fire routine.
But then again, it could be Lauren, because she does benefit once Naomi's out, because she's...
The alternate.
Exactly.
The alternate they've never ever had before, except for all the other books.
Corky is done caring who the evil is. She acknowledges that the evil is back. It doesn't matter who. It's someone.
Yeah, it's like every cheerleader practice or event, something bad happens, right?
So they're by the river, and then they see and hear some girls on ice, and who is it? It's
Ivy and Lauren. They're out on the ice. Wait a second, what does that mean?
Ivy is skating in weird patterns and repeating them over and over and over and over again.
And Lauren is watching intently on the shore, motionless and silent.
That is a little creepy.
Corky can see white steam coming out of a small hole in the surface behind Ivy. Ivy starts skating around the steam hole faster and faster until she becomes a blue blur in the smoke.
The girls are freaking out. But Deborah has a plan, and the plan is they need to drown Ivy.
Good plan, guys.
Well, school is out right now for winter vacation. Corky has been avoiding Alex for a while now, but now she's calling him and inviting him to a Christmas party, an ice skating party on the river. It's co-hosted with Kimmy and Deborah, and they're inviting all the cheerleaders and every guy in the basketball team.
It's going to be a great party. They're going to have Christmas music, and they're going to skate around, and they're going to have hot cider.
And some murder.
By the time Corky arrives, everyone but Alex is there. Corky manages to somehow skate away from the rest of the group and far from the party going on. This is kind of reminiscent of Broken Hearts, where they have like the ice skating party and then like the girl skates away. She's actually starting to feel a little dizzy and thinks that maybe Ivy's the reason that she's getting dizzy. And as she's waiting for the dizziness to pass, she hears someone skating rapidly towards her. This is definitely reminiscent of Broken Hearts here.
It's Santa Claus.
Yep. That's the scene from the cover. My heart breaks as I realized, like...
It's not Reva Dalby.
Nothing to do with Reva Dalby.
Santa Claus is standing over her menacingly, raising a long, pointy icicle right over his head, and she obviously freaks out.
Except it turns out it's Alex, who did it as a joke. Ha 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 ha. Corky has been so down lately, he wanted to cheer her up.
Well, Corky is decidedly not cheered up.
Yeah, maybe if he had listened to all her concerns about the evil being back, he wouldn't have made like such a stupid joke.
Did she even tell him about the evil being back? Does he even know about the evil?
I don't know. I mean, she was telling him about...
her concerns of all these injuries and like horrible things that's happened, and he thought, what if I pretended to murder you? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be funny? She begs off to go help Deborah and Kimmy with the party, and Alex goes to hang out with Jay.
Deborah brought her creepy, like, magic book, and Kimmy, Corky, and Deborah are about to go off and do some creepy occult stuff. They go off away from the others and start laying out the candles in a perfect ring. The plan is to pull the evil over with a chant, and this will draw Ivy forward towards them, and then they'll hold her down and knock her out, break the ice, and drown her. And what I don't get is this is supposed to happen at a party where everybody's watching?
Well, they're off to the side. I think it's insinuated that they like really went off away from the others.
Okay.
And they hope that Ivy would just be drawn to them alone and no one would follow her.
Anyway, they light the candles and they start chanting and calling the spirit. There's a soft rumbling, and the ice begins to shake. The ice starts to crack and break up all over the place, and it's almost like an earthquake, again, like the last time they did this.
There's a low roar that slowly gets louder before it becomes a deafening blast that throws the three of them backwards.
Struggling to breathe, Corky stared as the ice split open farther, rumbling, roaring. A swirling mass of thick, black smoke funneled up from beneath the surface. The smoke rose up, spinning like a cyclone, and a sour stench filled the air. Corky gasped as the sickening odor swept over her. She grabbed onto Kimmy and watched in horror as the black smoke whirled up from the depths of the river and swept over the shore. A malodorous blanket of black fog. It blew over the shocked skaters, over Ivy standing alone, over Jay and his friends huddled over the ice, over Heather and Lauren at the cider table. The sour smoke darkened the ice, blackened the sky. Corky heard the frightened cries of birds as they fluttered off their tree perches, the shrill shriek of the ducks and geese around the river's curve. The ice blistered and burned. The smoke spewed up thicker, faster, swirling up over the shivering trees, up to the clouds. "What have we done?" Corky cried, still sprawled on the ice, clinging to Kimmy. The evil! It wasn't an Ivy! Kimmy wailed. We were wrong! We were wrong! Deborah shouted over the roaring smoke. It wasn't an Ivy! Our chant called it up, Corky realized. We brought the evil to life. We've unleashed it!
Way to go, girls.
They basically psyched themselves out into, thinking the evil was back. It's almost like a cautionary tale about the evils of how cutthroat cheerleader tryouts are.
It is a very cutthroat world. There's that Netflix show, Cheer, that kind of goes into it. So now we're at the tournament against the Billingham Lions. They're a few miles from New Foster, and they're staying at the Cliffside Inn in New Foster. The basketball team is at the New Foster Motor Lodge because they don't want the cheerleaders and the basketball players in the same hotel.
You know what this New Foster thing, made me think of? I just pictured Ramapo. For this whole scene, I just pictured Ramapo for some reason.
New Foster has a cliff and a very pretty lake, is what we got about New Foster.
Corky and Kimmy are being extra nice towards Ivy since the skating party because they feel so guilty having misjudged her.
I mean, they were planning on murdering her, so maybe feel a little remorse.
Deborah, Corky, and Kimmy haven't mentioned the evil at all since that day because they're so done with it. Clearly, it's going to be peaceful from now on.
I mean, I'm sorry, didn't they conclude that they released the evil at the end of their stupid
No, but see, it released into the atmosphere. Everything will be fine.
I don't think that's how it works.
The tournament starts, and the guys are playing, and the cheerleaders cheer, and everything's fine.
But there is a standout cheerleader from the Billingham Lions, and her name is Lena. She's tall and well-built and athletic, long black hair that goes to her waist, with a pale, pretty face with big green eyes. And, the other cheerleaders hate her. They're so jealous of her because she has perfect form, she's graceful, she's athletic, she has a good voice, she's just perfection.
Fuck her, right? So, halftime. And the Shady Side cheerleaders are ready for their confetti cannons.
Because it worked so well the last time, they might as well do it again. Yep. What could go wrong?
They're locked and loaded with those cannons. Everything's going to go kabloom. And Lauren promises that she and Ivy checked them out beforehand and they won't backfire this time and everything's going to be great.
Well, what happens this time?
This time, when the cord is pulled, a thick black tar shoots out right into the crowd. They can't stop the cannons from shooting the tar, and everything's completely ruined.
Yeah, all the people in attendance are just running away from it.
And the cord is all messed up.
The police are called to investigate while the staff are desperate to clean up.
Miss Closter comes in to report that no one was hurt. She thinks that someone on the Lions or a Lions supporter rigged the cannons, and she wants to know if anyone saw anyone hanging around them before the game. Well, now because the basketball court's all messed up, they can't continue the game. So the second half has to get squeezed in at a different time slot while they clean up all the black tar. So they're thinking they can squeeze in the second half at noon before the game that was originally scheduled to begin at noon. So they would just do it the next day.
Well, we cut to that night. Corky's having a nightmare about the evil, and it's kind of getting to her until Alex, tapping on her window, wakes her up. Alex wants to make out with her and talk about the cannon because it's pretty cool. Corky wants to talk about how Alex has been acting really weird and he's been ignoring her, and she just wants to know what's up. Are you going to break up with me? What's going on?
Alex confesses that he had to get a tutor for math, and he was embarrassed because he's supposed to be a smart kid and didn't want to admit to others that he needed help. Corky tells him to get over himself, and he could have trusted her, and they do end up making out. But, very creepily, Corky sees Jay spying on them. What's going on? Why is Jay spying on them while they're making out? She wants Alex to take a look, but she turns around and Alex is gone. That's weird.
Corky thinks about how weird it is that Jay wasn't willing to interrupt her and Alex because nothing has stopped him from interrupting them before. She also thinks it's weird that Alex's kissing was rougher and harder than ever before, and also that he, disappeared.
Yeah.
And she thinks they're both just acting really strange.
So the next day, at the makeup second half of the game, first thing in the morning, Ivy and Lauren are watching the Lions cheerleaders warm up. Ivy talks about how she hates Lena, and she's just a show-off who thinks she's the best. And Ivy and Lauren have a stare-down with Lena.
At the same time, Jay is having a shouting match with the basketball coach. Jay starts throwing the basketball at the chairs on the sidelines, and he's screaming at the coach. He's out of control. When the coach tries to walk Jay off the floor, Jay screams at him and runs toward the locker room while freaking out.
The Lions start an impromptu cheerleader competition with the Tigers. After a few back and forths, it's the Lions' turn. Lena does a perfect backflip, which makes Corky think that Lena is the best cheerleader that she has ever seen. When the cheer is done, Lena keeps doing the backflips.
She can't stop.
She starts screaming for someone to help her because she can't stop.
So 2 cheerleaders from the Lions grab her, and she flips away from them. And then players and cheerleaders from both schools run at her trying to figure out how to stop her, and they can't. And then 3 basketball players struggle to pin her down, and she's screaming as she tries to pull herself out of their grasp, and she does more backflips. So she gets free, she does more backflips, and her screaming is permeating through the gym. She's begging someone to stop her. She just can't stop, she just keeps going.
Meanwhile, Corky notices that Ivy is standing towards the back of the crowd with a smile on her face. Medics are finally able to strap her down onto a gurney, and the ambulance drives away with her. That was pretty messed up, right?
Can't be the evil, because it disappeared. Or something. They play a half-assed, low-energy, low-scoring game. Neither side's cheerleaders can get into it. None of the players really can. The Tigers end up winning, but no one cares.
Deborah finds Corky and they talk about how it must be the evil.
Oh, no shit.
As they walk out of the locker room, they walk into the Tigers basketball coach.
He's lying face down with an enormous green water bottle from the cooler shoved into his mouth. It's like one of those 5-gallon things or 19 liters, depending on what unit of measure you use. It's one of those big-ass bottles from like a water cooler.
Yeah, this is shoved right in his mouth, and all the water is drained out of the bottle and into him. His belly and chest are as bloated as a water balloon.
It's like Gluttony from Seven. It's a great movie.
I wouldn't recommend that movie to anybody. But anyway, so wow, somebody murdered the coach?
Well, Alex is trying to rally the troops. He's trying to get everyone to come together, and they're going to win this tournament for the coach, and no one cares. No one is excited. They all want to leave. Their coach is dead. What the hell?
The police are investigating, and they're questioning Ms. Closter. Corky thinks that Alex is acting really weird, and so is Jay.
Kimmy just wants to go home and forget about all of this. She's done.
I think they should all go home. I don't know why they're still here. The police finally let them go later in the evening. Corky says it's too late to call her parents, and they won't drive up this late anyway.
I think after everything that's happened, especially like with her sister dying like a year or 2 ago, I think they totally drive up. Like, regardless of time. Like, that's what parents do. It's like someone was literally murdered. You know, there was a tar accident the day before. Deborah just wants to pack up and leave tonight. She does not care. She's like, let's just hitchhike. I don't care. I'm done with this. We're leaving.
Makes sense.
Good on you, Deborah.
Corky's trying to sleep that night, but can't stop thinking about Lena's backflips and Coach Hall bloated with the bottle sticking out of his mouth. Understandable. While she's, like, trying to sleep and, like, can't, she sees Ivy quietly sneaking out of bed. Corky then wakes Kimmy so they can follow Ivy and see what she's up to.
Ivy meets up with Heather, Lauren, Alex, Gary Brandt, and Jay, and they are very excited and they're like pumped about something. And suddenly, they just become solemn and they head out into the woods down to the lake.
Corky and Kimmy are startled by Deborah behind them. First, they're wary of her, thinking that she's going to join the rest of the group. Deborah says that she heard Heather and Lauren sneak out, so she followed them. She then questions Corky and Kimmy about what's going on.
I don't know why the 3 of them didn't room together, and then the 3 other girls room together. Would that make more sense? Anyways, the 3 of them decide to follow the group down into the woods.
And what they see is Jay and Lauren seem to be moving in slow motion, dipping their heads and raising their arms. And Alex, Gary, and Heather are also moving in slow motion, holding hands side by side, raising and lowering their arms.
They form a circle with their knees bent, feet sliding slowly over the ice. Their eyes are wide, vacant, empty, unblinking, unfocused, like the glass eyes of a doll. And as they keep looking, they realize that they're reenacting the skating party and the dancing they were doing before the 3 musketeers, called up the spirit.
An enormous black dog lumbers onto the ice and starts growling and showing its teeth. The hackles are up, the tail is up, and clearly I guess it senses the evil or whatever, but Jay grabs the dog's front legs, and Ivy grabs the dog's lower trunk, and then they heave the dog up straight into the air, over the trees, and when it comes back down, it lands back onto the ice with a sickening crack. The dog manages to hobble off and limp away, whimpering.
Corky, Deborah, and Kimmy are horrified, as I think anyone else would be. But more horror is to come because the possessed group has noticed the 3 of them. Obviously, the 3 girls get up and try to run out of there, but Kimmy slips and falls immediately.
And then the other 2 just peace out and leave her behind.
Yeah, Deborah does a great impression of Usain Bolt. She is gone.
Yeah.
Zoom.
She's the fastest one. Corky loses sight of her, but Corky doesn't help Kimmy either. She also books it out of there. And she makes it back to the motel, gets into a glass phone booth in the corner of the parking lot, and she's gonna try to call 911, but realizes the phone is dead. She tries to leave the booth, but Alex is standing outside, and he's like pushing the door shut, keeping her in there.
He only lets her out because he's gonna drag her down to the lake. Corky manages to spin free from him, and she takes off back into the woods to go hide.
She ends up on the ice, and when she looks down, there are two eyes staring up at her from under the ice. It's Kimmy.
Corky lets out a furious howl of rage and decides that she needs to seek revenge for Kimmy. Her howl brings Alex, Jay, and Lauren out to where she is, and she manages to escape from them back into the woods. Just stay in the woods. They pretend that they're not possessed, and they tell her that she's going to be late for the tournament, and that Miss Closter's looking for her. But Corky's not an idiot. She just keeps on hiding. And as she's hiding, she sees a blue jay whistling and then flying away. And then the next second, she hears a thud, and the blue jay is dead on the ground.
Its wings spread against the ground, its feet poking straight up in the air, the bird's head tilted at an unnatural angle. One lifeless black eye stared accusingly at Corky.
Corky ends up back at the motel, and she sees the evil crew getting on a bus that's going to the tournament.
What was the bird supposed to represent?
Well, I mean, isn't it just that Fear Woods has no birds?
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that later, right?
Okay.
So Corky watches the bus driver turn the engine on, but then he immediately, steps off the bus to go to the office because he needs to get something. And Corky is inspired. She jumps onto the bus, into the driver's seat. No one knows that it's her, so she slams the door shut and starts driving the bus.
Yep, she drives it through the road in the woods right up to the cliff that has the lake immediately below. With the image of Kimmy's bloated face in her head, pleading for her to keep going, she slams the gas. Someone on the bus recognizes her, but it's too late. She slows the bus down just enough and opens the door, jumping out right before the bus goes through and over the cliff. Corky hears the crack and splash of the bus going through the ice into the water. She sees the rear of the bus sticking straight up and sinking rapidly. Some ice fishermen are on the ice and running over to help the passengers. A large air bubble rises up in the blue water as the back of the bus sinks.
Corky is sobbing, and she's just watching the water bubble and boil and the steam pour out of the hole. She knows she's drowned the evil, but she doesn't know if her friends have made it.
Can I just say that's probably the most badass thing any of the main characters have ever done in a Fear Street book?
That is really badass.
She literally just hijacked the school bus and drove it off a cliff and jumped out at the last minute.
Well, Corky is in a daze, and she dazedly makes her way to the arena where the game is.
She manages to get Ms. Closter's attention, who's trying to figure out where everyone is. Corky's frantically telling her that the game needs to be cancelled and that everyone is dead. Then she sees everyone that she thought was dead out on the court warming up. Their faces are wet and puffy and bloated, and there's clumps of green lake moss stuck to their hair, and wet mud is running down their cheeks, and vacant, empty, lifeless eyes stare out, brackish brown water pouring out of their mouths and dribbling down their chins. Corky keeps on screaming that they're dead. They're dead as they start staggering towards her. She tries to run away as someone grabs her and she passes out.
Corky opens her eyes, and she finds herself in the hospital. The nurse tells her that she fainted and hit her head, and she has a bad concussion. She was dazed when she arrived at the arena and passed out because of the excitement. All her friends are also in the hospital, which kind of fills Corky with dread because they're all evil zombies or something. She has no clue what's going on.
Corky tries to escape from the hospital as soon as the nurse steps out. She runs out the door and runs right into Deborah. She then shoves Deborah into the doorway and runs down the hallway. Deborah is stunned but tries to get Corky to stop and calm down. The nurses see her running and try to run after her. She runs into a room to hide from them.
The room she ran into was Alex's room, and as Corky creeps towards him, he grabs her arm and he kisses her. She is 100% sure that he is trying to put the evil into her.
That's a euphemism for something.
Alex is just glad to see her and talks about how terrified he was. He doesn't really remember much about what happened on the bus. Maybe his panic wiped his memories? He doesn't know. Ice fishermen pulled them out or something. But no one got frostbite because the water was steaming and hot, and he doesn't know why that happened.
Deborah runs into the room and Corky asks what happened to her. Turns out Deborah just ran and then hid behind a restaurant.
Which is what Corky should have done, but you know what? She became a hero, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if Corky hadn't done what she did, who knows what would have happened. She eventually made her way into the arena and saw Corky at the bench. By the time Deborah got to Corky, Corky had already passed out.
Corky is internally mourning the loss of Kimmy, but she's also kind of glad that the evil was gone because good riddance to the evil.
Finally gone? Why is it finally gone?
Who knows? I don't know why she thinks that. Alex tells Corky it's Christmas Eve, and they all laugh or whatever, and the end. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your cheery spirits to Kananka Ice, Shadyside's premier year-round indoor climate-controlled ice skating rink. We offer rental skates with professionally sharpened blades and beginner lessons for people of all ages. Or book your party room today and summon all your friends. Get entranced by our Zamboni going round and round. Mention RetRead Podcast and get 20% off your lifetime membership. Don't let this opportunity skate by. Fear Street Mythos. We already know from previous books that the only way to lock up the evil is to die and then be buried with the evil still inside of you. You know, that's what happened to Sarah Fear, and the evil was successfully locked away for almost 100 years. Nobody's done that since. So every time, I think the first time, drowning in a hot bath, and then the evil just went down the pipes and possessed somebody else. And then I think in the previous book, Corky drowned herself in the river, and then that worked. But just temporarily, because now look, the evil's freaking back again.
I don't understand how they're oh, well, the river is frozen, so that means the evil is trapped in there. Because if, going by their theory, if there's a hole in the ice, that means the evil can escape. Then doesn't that mean when the ice melts come springtime, the evil is out? What was their ultimate plan? To keep the river frozen for eternity?
Yeah, it just makes no sense. We know this history because they did some research and they know this history. They should understand that this is in no way, shape, or form going to prevent the evil from coming back.
The evil has to be coming back again, right? Because dumping it in a lake rather than a river, can it make that much of a difference? I think you have a better chance of getting rid of the evil in a river because the river runs somewhere.
Right, so they already tried the bathtub.
Right.
They tried the river. They just upgrade, the size of the body of water every time.
But a river goes somewhere. Theoretically, a river should be leaving Shadyside and moving to some, other area. Whereas a lake is just stagnant, isn't it, for the most part?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, right? So why didn't the evil just get flowed away down the river? Why didn't it get just washed away? One theory, right, is that maybe you need the blue clay mineral in the surrounding soils in order for the evil to draw, the energy from that. Maybe now that it's dumped in a lake that is way out, who knows how far away from Shadyside, there's probably no blue clay mineral there. It's possible, right, that now it's going to be a lot less powerful. It's been dumped in the water, it's dissipated into the water, but it's looking for something to possess. It might not be able to possess a human being anymore. Maybe it's too weak. Maybe it'll only be able to possess a fish or an underwater snail or something, right? And then it'll have to work its way back up. Maybe a fisherman will catch the fish and eat it.
Or it'll get stuck to the bottom of a boat, and then someone brings the boat from that lake over to the river or to Fear Lake.
Right, because you're supposed to wash the boat in between lakes, right?
Yep.
But if some boater goes boating in that lake and then brings their boat back to Fear Lake...
You got the evil back.
Because Fear Lake's chock full of blue clay minerals. Now it's it's going to feed on that. It's going to come right back.
Well, speaking of the Fear area, we can also talk about how the Fear Street Woods, they don't have any birds. And when the evil encounters that beautiful blue jay in the woods where Corky is hiding, it immediately just dies. That could explain why you don't hear birds or birdsong in Fear Street Woods.
The evil or something like a related spirit or a similar kind of force is inhabiting the Fear Street Woods. Everybody's always been talking about how the woods are evil, Fear Street is evil, something's going on there, right? And it can't just be the fears, obviously. So maybe this is the natural forces faction, right? The natural evil that has kind of just evolved there over the centuries. And clearly something about it is completely antithetical to birds somehow. Kills them, keeps them from showing up. That's a really interesting, and we actually selected that passage and read it for this episode because I think it's very critical to the Fear Street mythos.
Speaking of the mythology, do you think we're done with the evil?
No, it's definitely coming back, right?
There is another cheerleader book.
Yeah.
So obviously the evil is coming back.
Yeah.
But how do you think this plays in with the factions? I mean, you see there's the natural faction with the birds.
Yeah.
This is obviously, I mean, it's part of the Fear faction, if you think about it, because it took over Sarah Fear. But at the same time, it was kind of the downfall for, like, the Fear family.
The Fear family was, like, ascendant at that point in time, right? They had, like, the mansion. They had, like, all the different family members living in town at the
parties.
time. They were, like, the center of society. And it all came crashing down, like, right around this turn of that century. You know, in some sense, this is part of what brought them down, right? And I don't know, maybe it's even something that the Goods brought on. Yeah.
Forgot all about them.
Well, now they're the corporation, I think. But I don't see, like, the corporation's hand in this. You don't see any, like, people that you could point to and say, like, oh, yeah, that guy or that woman, they're definitely, like, a corporate agent. Ooh, here's an interesting thing. This is kind of going deeper into the discussion, but you never really figure out who was the person to be possessed initially.
Surely someone was possessed before they did their, like, ridiculous seance thing.
Yeah, I mean, either there's, like, a whole bunch of, like, really weird coincidences or somebody's actually possessed. And here's an interesting thought. This just occurred to me, right? Because I was thinking about, like, okay, who might be an agent? The corporation. Normally, those would be the adults in the story. And here we have a new adult in the story, the new coordinator for the cheerleader squad, who just shows up this semester. The old one, like, pieced out. The coach. What if she's the one that's possessed?
Oh, dang.
Like, I never thought of that until now, but, like...
I mean, it's possible. Part of me was thinking it was Deborah, but...
Yeah, there's just so much in the book. I think, like, we can save that for the in-depth discussion, I guess.
Well, let's talk about Deborah and the book that she bought from the creepy-ass bookstore. The occult book? Like, what's up with that? Clearly, there was something in there that worked, because they tried a few spells or enchantments or whatever. Like, the first one in the house that made everything shake. Mm-hmm. And then the second time at the lake that made, like, the lake explode. So clearly someone sold this book purposefully to Deborah. And do you think it was, like, they wanted her to get this book so that she would basically unleash the evil? Or do you think it was, like, happenstance that she came across it?
Yeah, I wonder where the book came from, right? This kind of book is something that it might have been like an old possession of the Fear family, or could have come from the Goods as well. Both of those families dabbled in witchcraft and sorcery and might have possessed such a tome.
Well, I feel like in any kind of horror movie or TV show, like you would have the character go into that creepy-ass magical stuff store, and then they buy the book, and then they do something happens, and they run back to where the store was, but it turns out, like, it's an empty storefront, or, like, nothing is there, or it's, like, an empty lot or something. Like, this is what this particular part of the storyline feels like, to me.
Right, or it could have just been something as simple as, like, an estate sale. Because we know the Goods lived in Shadyside at some point. We know the Fears definitely, obviously, lived there. Some old-ass family member just freaking dropped dead one day without, like, anybody to take their stuff, and it all just went in an estate sale, right? And then, like, this guy at the store has it, but then why does he know that there's, like, something? And then why would he sell it to her anyway?
In Buffy, you'd be getting this from, like, the council or something. You know, someone like Giles would have a book like this. Or, like, some creepy-ass person from, like, another realm would have this book. This is not a normal book. This is not a book you go to a thrift store to buy. This is a book that has, like, something to it, and clearly the person selling it knows, too. What's the possibility that Deborah, who has, like, this whole history with the evil, would be the one to get this book? Part of me feels like she was pushed to get the book, like, guided to it, or they just wanted her to buy the book. And
maybe there's more than one evil. You know, who says there could only be one, like, evil spirit that possesses people or makes them do stuff against their will? Maybe there's a second one that shows up.
Why are all the evils so obsessed with cheerleaders?
And why are all the new cheerleaders, like, super blonde?
Yeah, why does everyone have white blonde hair? What is up with that? Are we in nitpicks?
Callbacks. We got Gary Brandt from The Overnight.
We got Dina Martinson and Jade Smith from Wrong Number.
We got Janie Simpson from The New Boy.
I think you should get this one.
And not Reva Dalby, nor anything to do with Silent Night series. This is like the anti-callback. I was really waiting for this callback, and it never happened.
I don't know why in the world you were waiting for this callback, but good on you. 90s things. Jay is wearing a Mighty Ducks hat, which was a huge, movie series in the 90s. I loved it. Quack, quack, quack.
We got a tape player somewhere in there. Corky tries to hide in a glass phone booth. You can't really find too many of those around anymore.
They don't have cell phones to call their parents.
Yep.
Or to call an Uber or a Lyft.
Or just, like, text their parents or something.
Yeah.
Nitpicks.
I went and researched seatbelt laws in the United States.
I guess you were like really triggered that that girl didn't put her seatbelt on.
Listen, put on your seatbelts. It will save your life. PSA from RetRead Podcast. You're welcome. So seatbelt laws went into effect in Ohio in 1986 and in Massachusetts in 1994. New Hampshire is the only state with no seatbelt law. This book, I think, came out in 1994. But seriously,
they're teenagers. They probably just don't care about like the seatbelt law, even if it was there.
When I was a teenager, the first thing I did when I got in the car was put on a seatbelt. And if I were the one driving, the first thing I did after putting on my seatbelt would be, hey, does everyone have their seatbelts on? Because you're taught in driver's ed, that key does not go into the ignition.
Yeah, I know. And you're still a goody two-shoes to this day. I get it. But like normal teenagers really couldn't care less about that.
I think my friends also did that.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Wow. When Corky and Bobby made the team in the first book, that actually forced Miss Green to make one of the girls already on the team an alternate. Yes, there's already an established precedent of alternates on the cheerleading squad, and I don't know why they're all, like, so bitchy about there being an alternate all of a sudden.
What is the problem with having an alternate anyways? Isn't it good to have an alternate by the very fact that they need to suddenly audition a bunch of people to join?
Yeah, I don't...
Like, if they had an alternate, they wouldn't be going through this.
This cheerleading squad is so freaking exclusive. And they're, like, not even a very big squad. Like, my understanding is, like, you can always have more cheerleaders. Like, just make a new formation that includes, like, another person. They can now be louder. There's so many benefits to this. I don't know why the squad at Shadyside is so limited and so exclusive and, like, so cutthroat about, like, getting on the squad.
I get being exclusive and cutthroat. Like, come on, you want the best of the best.
Right.
But you gotta have an alternate. Like, that's the point. That's why you have first string and second string in, like, every other sport.
Mm-hmm. Last time we nitpicked that even though all the cheerleaders knew the evil was back individually, they didn't team up together to try to stop it. And I guess now we have our answer. They tried teaming up in this book, and it made it even worse. It ended up possessing the entire basketball team and the entire cheerleading squad. We were all possessed.
It was only half the basketball team, right? It was only Jay, Alex, and Gary.
No, it was like everybody.
No, it was Jay, Alex, and Gary. It was the only people they named.
Really?
Yeah.
My understanding was, like, maybe those were the only ones they named, but it was, like, the whole squad.
My understanding was only, like, those three guys and all the cheerleaders.
Well, it was bad news anyway.
Yeah.
They're, like, became, like, a zombie army, basically.
All right, can we talk about the police in New Foster? I mean, and in Shadyside. I mean, first of all, you have all this weird shit happening in Shadyside to the cheerleaders. Like, shouldn't they be like, why is it just happening to this one group of people? And then in New Foster, literally... this man has like a 5-gallon jug of water shoved into his mouth. His entire body is like filled with water. And instead of like calling parents, getting parents down there.
There's also a cheerleader that is frozen under the ice.
Well, yes, I was talking about before poor Kimmy had to die. She didn't have to die if the police actually like did anything. Called their parents to come get them because, oh my god.
I feel like nothing happens. Like, ordinarily, the police would be interviewing everybody. I don't think they'd let them all go back to Shadyside and leave their jurisdiction until they, like, had some suspects, you know what I mean?
No, but they would definitely call parents. Even if they don't want them to leave their jurisdiction, you still want the parents to come. You don't know what's going on. You had a cheerleader, like, literally go crazy doing backflips.
Yeah.
And then you have a dude shoved full of water. And this is all the day after, like, your cannons malfunctioned and shot tar at everyone. Clearly there's something wrong. This is, call the parents. But shouldn't the parents be there already?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. This is a Christmas tournament, and it's being held like a couple days before Christmas.
It's like 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah. Where else are the parents going to be if not at their kid's stupid tournament?
Like, who is watching this game?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's not like there's this huge, like, rabid fan base. I mean, maybe there is, but it's probably mostly consisting of the parents of the kids who are playing. There's like 20 kids here between the basketball team and the cheerleaders. At least one set of parents should be there. And if they saw just half the shit that just went down, they would be like right there, like pulling their kid out of there, getting them in the car and driving them home immediately.
Yeah, they'd be calling the other parents going, let me tell you about this tar cannon. And then next they'd be like, oh my god, the coach is bloated and dead.
Yeah, that would be it. The kids would all be going home.
And the next day was Christmas Eve, and yet... they're still there?
It doesn't make any sense.
And also, can we talk about Christmas break? It says that the Christmas break already started when they had their ice skating party. And they made the ice skating party out to be like a week or two ago. So how long is their winter break? Because I know for us, winter break started on Christmas Eve.
I don't know. Maybe it's different in Ohio. Maybe Ohio just has like really long breaks. Listeners, if any of you are in Ohio, reach out to us.
And we're not talking about colleges. We're talking about like high school.
Actually, now I'm thinking about it, like the new cheerleading squad coach is definitely getting fired. And that's probably what happened to Mrs. Green. Miss Green got fired, I'm pretty sure, after all the bullshit that went on. And then now the bullshit is even worse. So this new coach is done for. If
the school principal can like survive all these students dying one by one in his school, I'm pretty sure the cheerleading coach is fine.
Yeah. Mr. Hernandez.
He's fine. She's fine. Mm-hmm. Who would want to work at a school with so many deaths? You're not getting teachers. You better keep the ones you got.
Yeah, now the basketball coach is just gone. That's crazy.
That's pretty horrific.
If the evil wanted to kill Deborah, Kimmy, and Corky, why didn't it just like possess them into drowning themselves? And why are all the cheerleaders and basketball players possessed, but Corky gets off scot-free? Even though, like, a random cheerleader on the other side is targeted, but not Corky.
Like, what was the evil's plan?
We kind of, like, got inside the head of the evil in the previous book when it possesses Corky. I think what happened was it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. So it helps you, like, act out your, like, deep jealousies and, like, impulses. Basically, any kind of evil impulse that you have, it'll take over and say, like, yep, I can do that. I can make an evil thing come out of your evil impulses. If anybody dislikes Corky, they could have evil cursed her into, like, dying.
Corky was there at every single instance of something bad happening. Every single instance of those, like, weird seance things that the three idiots pulled off. Part of me is thinking, like, I mean, remember at the very end, she has that weird-ass vision of, like, them as zombies or whatever?
All zombies.
And that's never really explained. They confirmed that she ran into the arena.
Yeah.
And she ran onto the basketball court. And she ran into, like, the coach. And then she passes out. But nothing really explains, like, that particular thing. Because at first I was like, oh, it's a bust. She's obviously dreaming. She obviously, like, passed out somewhere else. But then it's like, no, that actually happened. So nothing really explains that hallucination. And part of me thinks that, like, maybe she was the one possessed by the evil.
Yeah, maybe. This could go with the two evil theory, right? There could be, she's possessed by one evil, then they summon another one that possesses all the other ones.
Or there's just an aspect of the same evil that wants, like, the entirety of its evil back. Part of the evil stayed a part of her, and it's calling to the rest of its parts.
Right, well, she's like a Horcrux.
Basically. Exactly. And then she has to die for the evil to die.
Yeah, could be. Well, Kimmy's dead now. Wasn't Kimmy possessed at one point?
Yes.
So maybe, like, they just have to die one by one, and then only then can the evil be, like, finally...
Exactly. So my thing is, like, maybe Corky is part evil. Kimmy was part of the evil. But, like, the evil doesn't know that it's necessarily part of them. That's why it was so willing to kill Kimmy. By killing Kimmy, it makes it easier to kill the evil.
Maybe. I guess we're going to find out in the next book.
Why are we going back to the Harry Potter analogies?
That's just my thing. What were your thoughts on this book? Who was possessed to begin with?
Didn't we just have this conversation?
Well, we've been having this conversation this whole time, and I still don't get it. Like, was it Deborah? It could have been Ivy. Like, maybe Ivy was possessed from the start.
It could have been. Like, it doesn't explain, like, her doing that ice skating thing in a circle around the hole. But then that goes back to, like, why would you be surprised that an evil could escape from a body of water?
Yeah, or it could have even been Lauren. Like, the thing is, I feel like in this book, like in every other book, he makes a bunch of red herrings, right? So, like, maybe it's this person, maybe it's this person, because he likes to have a good number of people do something suspicious. So it's plausible that any one of them could be the culprit, right? So a bunch of them are made out to be red herrings. And, like, okay, one of them's the real deal. And then 10 other people are possessed on top of that. And then at the end of the book, it's, like, never really revealed. Like, there's no resolution. Who was it that was the original person that was possessed? You don't know. Is it anybody? Who knows? Maybe nobody. This is the least satisfying ending in terms of, like, figuring out, okay, who was it the whole time? You don't know. It's never actually revealed where the evil was the whole time.
Yeah, part of me also thinks that, like, it could have been Deborah who was possessed because she was so gung-ho from, like, the start. Like,
let's do the book.
Let's start do this chanting thing. We got the candles. We got this one.
I got this book from a random store. Trust me, we got this.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden that we've unleashed the evil. Like, how do you mess it up so badly?
Right. It's almost like it was designed to actually happen that way.
But she wasn't in the car when Heather was thrown out of it. So Deborah wasn't there for that. So that's why I'm thinking, like, I don't know. but also, like, would it be Kimmy who was, like, partly angry that, like, someone is violating seatbelt laws in her car and just like, you know what? I'm gonna teach you a lesson. You'll never not put a seatbelt on ever again.
Yeah, I don't think that's what happened.
Listen, sometimes you just need to teach a lesson. I've seen Arrested Development. This is why you teach lessons.
Aside from that, like, kind of unsatisfying non-resolution to the mystery, I thought this book had the most badass heroine scene of any R.L. Stine Fear Street book so far, with hijacking the bus and just driving it off a cliff with, like, all the possessed zombies on it. That was, like, really badass. I remember, like, reading the book going like, oh my god! You know, just exclaiming out loud, like, this is so cool! Going back, we've had a lot of scenes like that, you know, like, for example, in Halloween Party, was it? Where the heroine, like, smacks the bad guy with, like, a giant cast iron pan or whatever.
But this was, like, next level.
Hijack the bus.
This is next level crazy. Like,
I don't even know how to drive a bus.
He somehow in the past heard about us complaining about his buses. And he's like, you know what? Wait until you get to that book. And then you'll see a bus. And we were bused.
Well, this bus was not a bus. This was, like, an actual bus. She gets on and she drives that bus right off the cliff. It was so cool. And then she, like, just jumps out the door, too. That's, like, so fucking cool.
I like how she's like, well, I definitely got rid of the evil, but I don't know about my friends. And it's like, girl, how do you even know you got rid of the evil? Like, you just drove it into a lake again. You just drove it into another body of water. Like, it didn't work the first time.
So she was, like, running for her life through the woods the entire night. All night long. She never got any sleep. She was just running, trying to, like, run for her life, escape. And then, like, straggles back to the motel in the early morning after all night out in the woods in the winter, freezing cold. And she sees all these freaking possessed zombies get on the bus. And instead of going like, okay, I'm almost free, just wait for them to leave and then just, like, find a way home, she's like, you know what? I'm going to stop them. I'm not going to let them go back to the arena. I'm not going to let them hurt anybody else. I got them all right here in one place. The bus driver, like, goes to take some coffee from the hotel lounge and she, like, seizes this opportunity. She's like, I'm the only one that can stop this right now. Once and for all. Drives the bus right into the woods, right up the mountain and off the cliff. It was like, holy shit. That's so brave. You think about, like, how she was thinking about her sister earlier in the book. Now she's thinking about Kimmy. She's doing it for them, you know, the ones that died. She wants to put this to an end.
Do you think that once you're possessed once, you can't be possessed again?
Once you get coronavirus once, can you get coronavirus a second time?
What?
You see, I think R.L. Stine was really writing about the global coronavirus pandemic all the way back in 1994. He called it.
Maybe there's a thing where if you're possessed
It never
before,
made Deborah do it. It never made Kimmy do it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, once you've been possessed, you can't be possessed again.
Deborah's never been possessed before.
Well, she wears her crystal thing.
Maybe they should have all worn fucking crystal things.
Well, maybe they should have. God damn it, Deborah. Give everyone a crystal. But you know what? All props to Corky for doing what she did, but I would be Deborah. I would be like, I'm going to the restaurant. I am hiding here until daybreak.
Corky's super brave.
Listen, we all want to be Corky, but we're all either Deborah or Kimmy. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah.
So out of 5 skating blades, how many would you give it?
I'd give it like a good 3 skating blades.
That's like on a normal book scale.
Yes, it is. I thought that bus scene was so cool. It made up for all the other nonsense in my mind. We'll never know who was possessed. Maybe the next book we'll find out. I don't know.
I don't remember what I gave it on Goodreads. I'm just gonna say I gave it a 4 out of 5 on my Fear Street scale.
Alright.
It was fun. I had fun with it. I feel like R.L. Stine, what he does really, really good is, and I'm gonna compliment him, it's slightly backhanded. When you do a one-off book like his normal series tends to be, you have to set up your characters, you have to give them a background, you have to describe them because in a way that only R.L. Stine can describe characters.
Platinum blonde.
Pale creamy white skin.
Silver blonde.
Exactly. You need so much time to set up. It's like in the Babysitter's Club. You need to use 3 or 4 chapters just to explain what the club is, who each girl is, and then the characteristic of each of the girls. And that's kind of what R.L. Stine does in his books. He has so much time that he has to go into describing and setting up his characters that the book suffers. But in something like the Cheerleader series that we've had so far, he's already done the bulk of the character development in those books. We know Corky, we know Kimmy, we know these characters. I feel like he didn't really waste that much time trying to explain these characters to us. He just kind of referenced the previous books. And if you've read those previous books, you know who these people are, you know what they're capable of, you know their ups and their downs and their highs and their lows. He didn't really have to do that here. He just put those characters that he's already built up into a story, and it was sort of well done-ish.
To be a little counterpoint to that is anytime he does try to recap some something from a previous book, he ends up contradicting himself or getting the facts wrong.
That is valid.
There's another reason possibly that he doesn't do that. It's just since he doesn't have any notes, it's best not to go back to your notes. I feel like every book he writes, he just writes it, and then as soon as it's off to the publisher, he tries to forget it as hard as he can.
I mean, wouldn't you? No, but what I'm trying to say is this is a super chiller book, so it's longer than the average book. Because he's using less time to set up these characters, that means more time is devoted to plot.
Right.
And you can say there's a lot of nonsense that's happening and there's still unanswered questions, and I can concede that to you. But at the end of the day, it is probably being part of a series like the Cheerleaders, or I'm sure for Silent Night and Reva Dalby, what it does is it really helps not just you as a reader get into the story easier, but it helps him as a writer because that is not his forte. Mm-hmm. And I feel when you get rid of the thing that he's weakest at, it just elevates this book. It just seems like it's a better book because you don't have to deal with the part he's really crap at. So that's why I think I might have liked this book a little more, because let's say plot wise there's a lot that doesn't make sense and whatever, but it's still fun and it still captured my attention and there's not really anything objectionable.
So for the next book, speaking of Arlstein book series inside the Fear Street book series, we're starting another one next episode. It's going to be the first book in the 99 Fear Street series.
99 Fear Street, The House of Evil.
The first horror. Now, Anna actually went ahead and read the book without making a prediction.
I forgot. But, then again, my predictions are always so accurate that, I just wanted to give Serge a chance.
All right, so I'm going to let you describe the cover.
Okay, so on the cover, it's a house, the front of a house, it's the doorway. The number 99 is written on it. It's glowing 99, and the window goes all around the doorway, and it seems to be glowing too. It has a spider web quality to it. And then in front of the house, you have two girls. One has long hair, one has short hair. The one with long hair is staring like a 1,000-yard stare, and then the one with short hair is looking right at the reader with a "Are you for real?" face. Next to her is a book with a knife shoved into it, and the book seems to be bleeding.
So I really fixated on that book on the cover. My prediction's based on that. The plot is going to be about a house on Fear Street, which is number 99, and there are two girls, and one of them actually summons the evil book. Then they try to kill it, and the book bleeds, but it won't die. So the murderer is actually a cursed book, and the murder weapon is a knife. The murderer gender is not applicable because the book's... Why are you laughing over there?
No, keep going.
No, yeah, because the, books don't have a gender, and the victim gender will be female, and that is my prediction. Judging by the fact that the person who already read the book is laughing their ass off right now, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say my prediction is not going to pan out, but I guess that's a spoiler alert for next episode.
I cannot wait for you to read the book.
Well, I can't wait for it either, and I can't wait to see you guys next time for the next episode of Fear Street Podcast. Stay tuned.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of RetRead Podcast.
Join us again as we continue our journey down Fear Street.
We love hearing from you guys, so feel free to reach out to us at RetRead Podcast on Twitter and Facebook.
Email us at ret.read.podcast@gmail.com.
Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe.
Once again, thanks for listening. See you again soon.